Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, I hereby declare open the 13th meeting of 14th session of the Conference of the Party to the United Nations Convention to Combat Desertification. Distinguished delegates, I invite the conference to consider Agenda Item 3A, Report of the Committee for the Review of the Implementation of the Convention and its recommendation to the Conference of Parties. I now invite the Chair of the Committee for Review of the Implementation of the Convention, Mr. Samuel Mabilin Contreras of Philippines, to present the report of the CRIC.
Thank you, Mr. President. Distinguished delegates, I have the honor to present the 14th session of the Conference of the Parties, a summary of the outcomes of the deliberations of the Committee for the Review of the Implementation of the Convention at its 18th session. I am pleased to inform you that the committee successfully concluded its work this afternoon with the adoption of 7 draft decisions as follows. Under its Agenda Item 2A, entitled Review of the Report of the Committee for the Review of the Implementation of the Convention, on its 17th session, the committee adopted 1 draft decision on assessment of the implementation of the Convention against the strategic objectives of the UNCCD 2018-2030 Strategic Framework, contained in document ICCD/CRIC18/L.4. Under Agenda Item 3, entitled Improving the Procedure for Communication of Information, as well as the quality and formats of reports to be submitted to the Conference of the Parties, the committee adopted a draft decision on improving the procedure for communication of information, as well as the quality and formats of reports to be submitted to the Conference of the Parties, as contained in document ICCD/CRIC18/L.2. Under its Agenda Item 4, entitled Securing of Additional Investment and Relations with Financial Mechanisms, the committee adopted 2 draft decisions, one under Sub-Item A on collaboration with the Global Environment Facility, contained in document ICCD/CRIC18/L.1, and the second under Sub-Item C on assessment of financial flows for the implementation of the Convention, contained in document ICCD/CRIC18/L.6. Under its Agenda Item 5, entitled Development and Promotion of Activities for Targeted Capacity Building to further the implementation of the Convention, the committee adopted a draft decision on enhancing the implementation of the United Nations Convention to combat desertification in support of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development through the enhancement, strengthening, and promotion of capacity building, contained in document ICCD/CRIC18/L.3. Finally, under its Agenda Item 6, Procedural Matters, the committee adopted 2 draft decisions, one on the program of work for the 19th session of the Committee for the Review of the Implementation of the Convention, contained in document ICCD/CRIC18/L.7, and another on the date and venue of the 19th session of the Committee for the Review of the Implementation of the Convention, contained in document ICCD/CRIC18/L.5. I hereby submit the 7 draft decisions to the Conference of the Parties at its 14th session for adoption. Mr. President, I would further like to inform the Conference of the that the committee elected the following vice chairs to its bureau for the 19th and 20th session. They are Ms. Nino Chicovani from Georgia, Mr. Hussein Nasrallah from Lebanon, Ms. Saliha Fortas from Algeria, and Mr. Ahmet Zenyas from Turkey. Finally, I would like to take this opportunity to thank the facilitator of the Creek Contact Group, Ms. Iskomsa Nitsanga of South Africa, as well as all the delegation for their flexibility and spirit of compromise that allowed the committee to complete the work allocated to it. Thank you, Mr. President.
I thank you for the report of the Creek. May I take it that the conference wishes to adopt the draft proposal contained in document ICCD/CREEK18/L1 to L7. Hearing no objection, it is so decided. We have thus concluded action on recommendation of the 18th session of the Creek. I would like to thank all delegations for their hard work and commitment in bringing the Creek session to a successful conclusion. Are there any delegation wishing to make statement on the work of Creek at its 18th session? India, you may have the floor.
Mr. President, India appreciates the innovative work carried out by the chair of CRIC and his team in CRIC 18. Committee has taken very important decisions in implementation of objective of UNCCD, the convention. Thank you, Mr. President.
I thank you, India, for your statement. Is there any party who wants to make a statement? Distinguished delegates, I now invite the conference to consider agenda item 1F, organization of work, including the session of subsidiary bodies. As you may recall, the COP established the Committee of Whole and allocated item of its agenda for further consideration. I would now like to give the floor to Mr. Tewor Ban, Chairperson of the Committee of the Whole, to report the conference on the work of the Committee of the Whole. Mr. Ban, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Distinguished delegates, I have the honor to present to the 14th session of the Conference of the Parties a summary of the outcomes of the deliberations of the Committee of the Whole to date. At its first meeting on Tuesday, 3rd September, 2 contact groups were established, one on program and budget and the second on the COW related matters. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the facilitators of the contact groups, Mr. Troy Torrington of Guyana and Mr. R.B. Lal of India, for their dedication and hard work in guiding the discussions in the groups. Mr. President, distinguished delegates, I am pleased to inform you that the committee successfully adopted 7 draft decisions earlier this evening as follows. Under Agenda Item 2B, entitled Modalities, Criteria, and Terms of Reference for Midterm Evaluation of the UNCCD 2018-2030 Strategic Framework, the committee adopted 1 draft decision entitled Modalities, Criteria, and Terms of Reference for a Midterm Evaluation of the UNCCD 2018-2030 Strategic Framework contained in document ICCD 14/L13. Under Agenda Item 3C, entitled Improving Procedures for Communication of Information as well as Follow-up on Policy Frameworks and Thematic Issues, the committee adopted 3 draft decisions on this matter, including ICCD/COP14/L4, follow-up on the positive role that measures taken under the convention can play to address desertification, land degradation, and drought as one of the drivers that cause migration, contained in document ICCD/COP14/L6, and follow-up on policy frameworks and thematic issues, sand and dust storms, and contained in document ICCD/COP14/L2. Under agenda item, Mr. President, 7A, entitled Participation and Involvement of Civil Society Organization in Meetings and Processes of the United Nations Convention to Combat Desertification, the committee adopted 2 draft decisions, one on the declaration of the Youth Forum contained in document ICCD/COP14/L1, and the second on the declaration of civil society organizations attending the 14th session of the Conference of the Parties and contained in document ICCD/COP14/L3. Finally, Mr. President, under item 7B, participation and involvement of the private sector in meetings and processes of the United Nations Convention to Combat Desertification and the business engagement strategy, the committee adopted 1 draft decision on the declaration from the Sustainable Land Management Business Forum as contained in the document ICCD/COP14/L8. I hereby submit these 7 draft decisions to the Conference of the Parties at its 14th session for adoption. All remaining draft proposals are expected to be acted on by the Committee of the Whole tomorrow, and I will present these for the consideration of the conference at its closing plenary tomorrow morning. Mr. Chair, I just would like to take this opportunity also to thank the 2 chairs for the hard work that they've put in to date in reaching consensus on these 7 decisions, and I ask them to continue their good work in finalizing the remaining decisions. I thank you.
Thank you for your report. I also thank all the parties for constructive engagement and flexibility in finalizing the work of the Committee of the Whole. Distinguished delegates, I now invite the conference to take action on the draft proposal just presented by the Chair of the Committee of the Whole. May I take it that the conference wishes to adopt the following draft proposal: ICCD/COP14/L1, L2, L3, L4, L6, L8, and L13. Hearing no objection, it is so decided. Are there any delegations wishing to make statement on the work of the Committee of the Whole? So we'll go next. Distinguished delegates, this brings us to the end of the deliberation of this afternoon. The conference will next meet tomorrow, Friday, 13th of September, in order to take action on all outstanding draft proposals before it and conclude the 14th session of the Conference of the Parties. Before I adjourn, I will give the floor to the Secretary to make an announcement on the program of work. Secretary, you have the floor.
Thank you, sir. We would like to inform delegates that the COP Bureau meeting will take place this evening at 6:30 in MET 14. Also, for the timing of the 2 remaining COW and COP plenaries that will take place tomorrow, 13 September, delegates are kindly invited to check tomorrow's journal and the information that will be posted on the electronic boards in the conference center and on the UNCCD app. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary. The meeting is adjourned.